Hey fam, Brave Wolf here. This is episode 2 of Welcome to the Brotherhood with Craig Whitney. We'll see if we can get him on. Hey brother.
How you going, mate?
Good man. Can you turn your camera?
Oh, that's it.
There we go. There we go.
We going landscape. Good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It fits people in better. Righty.
Okay.
How you going, man?
Good.
Good. Alrighty. So, do you want to just introduce yourself first? A little bit.
All right. Hi, my name's Craig Whitney. Spirit animal is determined donkey. I was
Mm-hmm.
initiated through the Mankind Project in July 2019 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Awesome, man.
34 years old.
Awesome. So what was? I'll start from the beginning. So, what was life like for you, growing up?
What was life like for me growing up? Well,
Mm.
I had an average childhood. I'm a farm boy, grew up on the land.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a grazier. I was literally going to become a protege, so a fourth generation farmer to take on the land from my father eventually when my father retired. So I followed him around as a little fella. He showed me the ropes of traditional cattle grazing. Some of it can be quite detailed for animal rights activists, but that's
Yeah.
the way we did it on the land, and that's the way I learnt. Fortunately, things come to a head, and I end up going into foster care at 9 years old. So
Mm.
that kind of disrupted a lot of things through domestic violence and abuse off
Yeah.
my parents, because my parents were very well old fashioned. And if you're a child, depression era, if you're a child who didn't do what they're told in that era, well, you got the strap, stick,
Mm.
belt, stock whip, whatever was on hand, and
Yeah.
that just was just quite repetitive discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 10 years in foster care as a ward of the state. I had a loving family. I mean, that family, that taught me a lot of things. That gave me an actual family life with brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
It taught me things like to share. It taught me that I don't have to rely on myself.
Yeah.
Um, I moved out of home at 19, got into the meat industry.
Mm-hmm.
Took that as an opportunity from a couple of mates through high school because I was getting nowhere. I was on Centrelink,
Yeah.
no jobs in a country town. So I moved out western New South Wales, took a job at a meatworks at Inverell. Started off as a labourer on the kill floor, sweeping or pushing blood from the knocking box to the bleed rail, as we call it,
Mm-hmm.
and trying not to get kicked in the head by freshly slaughtered cattle as they
Yeah.
come across from the up off the knocking box to the bleed rail. So
Hey, brother, can
that
you
was
just
my
move
break.
your, can you just move your camera just a little bit? The lights are shining a bit
Ah,
in the background. Yeah,
that's
there we go.
better,
That's it.
kinda.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Go on.
That's better.
Yeah.
That's better. So yeah, so I made my break at Inverell at 19 on the kill floor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did what most young bucks did in the meatworks. Started off on the ground floor, worked my way up from there until someone gave me the opportunity to put a knife in my hand and start teaching me knife hand jobs,
Mm-hmm.
which I gratefully said yes to on the kill floor. because the conditions were shit. Did 2 years at Inverell, got myself in a lot of trouble, drugs and alcohol, women, and eventually moved out because a lot of people wanted to kill me. Moved to Ipswich, got a job at Dinmore at the meatworks down there, largest meatworks in the Southern Hemisphere. I did 3.5 years there. I finished my trade as a slaughterman there, so I'm a fully qualified slaughterman by trade. I'm not proud of it, but it's the way the industry is. If you work on the kill floor, it's very hierarchical. So the autocratic status is the slaughterman's the top of the tree, and then you got your gutters underneath, and then your knife hands on, say, the porch tables, and then your labourers who are basically on the bottom of the pyramid and the worst sort of treated. So yeah, I finished up my trade at Dinmore. That was another shithole of a place. I left there, got into business, failed a few times, lost a house and a car through an ex-partner. Got back into the meat industry 2010 over at Cannon Hill at ACCC. Continued on. I needed a job. I needed an income. I was desperate. Did a couple of years there, and then I eventually finished in late 2013. I walked out of the career as a protege trainer. I was being mentored to become a world or international trainer to travel to different slaughterhouses, whether it be domestic or internationally, to look at systems, learn how to build systems and start new meatworks and train workers throughout my travels, wherever the company was heading for either domestic business or international. And in my case, a lot of the business was up in the Northern Territory and Kimberleys in Western Australia with the Aboriginal communities and the water buffalo. So we're setting up small sheds there to give the locals jobs and slaughter them with a 44 Magnum pistol.
Yeah.
Because the water buffalo skull's a lot thicker than the standard cattle. And I eventually got sick of it and walked out of the industry because I just physically and mentally had enough. Got into sales and then bought a courier franchise and around October 2014, and I've been in the transport industry ever since. Sold my fast-paced business in late 2016. I've just been floating around subbing for different companies since.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Thanks for the introduction. That was awesome. So my next question was, what was masculinity like for you growing up, and who modeled that for you?
Masculinity, because I had two fathers in my life. I had my real dad and my foster dad. So my real dad basically modeled masculinity to me that was modeled onto him from granddad, who was modeled onto him from great-granddad. So we're talking 3 generations of, what do we call it, colonial, so slavery, 1870 style English colonial parenting right through to Depression era, masculinity or child raising right through to the 20th century to me. So all that sort of traditional childhood brought up onto me for the first 10 years of my life. And then once I got into foster care, introduced me to a second dad who was more present, but he didn't model the effective skills that I needed that would bridge me on in life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So what brought you to MKP and led you to get involved in the I group and then start doing the training and starting your journey towards like
What led me to the Mankind Project? Basically, I was on the last stand. I'd just come back from a fresh suicide attempt in late September last year after coming off being finally prosecuted after a 7-month court ordeal and being shamed publicly through the media. Gotcha. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
North Korean satellite must have flew in or something. So yeah, I come basically off a fresh court case and a suicide attempt of 7 months, and literally off a breakdown that happened November previously that year. So it all progressed from November 17 to September 2018, and I put a suicide attempt on my life on the 22nd of September up at Innisfail, where I bought a 38 caliber Smith and Wesson pistol off a bikie friend of mine, and I was just basically on that warpath, which ended up failing. And then it was a phone call from a vegan man, who actually brought me into the light, and then a reconnection with another man through the MKP network that brought me into the light of the MKP world to start working on me, bring me to myself. And I sat in circles for months before I went and did my training in July this year. Literally, I needed to rebuild my own confidence and do the work on me internally before I took that next step to become initiated as a brother and as a man through the MKP.
Yeah. So what would you say the difference between you? You've mentioned some of it, but before and after, like, what was the change and the shift that you've seen in yourself after doing the training?
I met myself internally. Basically, before I went through a breakdown. I was living on ego. I was trying to hide. I was just in a state of flight. I'd been shamed. I wasn't in any sort of mindset to face anything. I was just run, run, run. It's because, well, both my fathers taught me to suppress everything, and I wasn't good enough. I'm a failure if I ask for help. All that nasty stuff that we're programmed in as little boys. And then when we do become men or grow up, we're still little boys trapped inside a man's body doing destructive things. But after the MKP, it's like, after the warrior training, that basically opened me up. And then it's like, fuck, I wanted more. I had the desire for the hunger to own my shit and be able to step up from a little boy to evolve to a little man, to perform that art of what they call asbestosis, which is the death or the ritual of the little boy, to evolve to the... And that's what had happened over the NWTA weekend. And then that hunger just developed for more and more after.
Oh, so what is your mission?
My mission is I create a world of transcendence through compassion.
Okay. And how would you say you're bringing that forth, or you're bringing that to the world?
I'm living my life as an example. It's like, yes, I've the principles that I've walked is what I'm writing about. I'm writing a book, and I'm also restructuring a keynote sort of speeches. I have a passion to be on stage, to create that transcendence of delivering with impact to troubled men within my audience, or troubled wives, or troubled kids, or even fellow activists who are so passionate with their movements. Anybody and everybody who can connect with my journey will be impacted by my story. And that's where the transcendence kicks in. And it's the principles that I've come up with, the 3 principles of owning my actions is one of them. Basically, research states that today's era is taught about ownership thinking. Well, as men, we have our thinking rock, and we sit on our thinking rock a bit too long while the ship's sinking, while the shit's going up in flames, while our lives are falling apart, while our kids are, losing their minds, their families are falling apart, and as men, we're sitting on our thinking rock thinking. And then the marker comes up with ownership thinking. It's like, no. We've got to own our actions. Yes, I did what I did. It's like, I'm owning this. I'm taking this forward. This is what I've done. This is what I've learned. And this is what I'm willing to teach to impact others' lives. And the second principle is basically divergent thinking, or plan my return. It's a psychological term for thinking in multiples. I learned that off a top-notch Brisbane psychologist. Basically, one problem has multiple solutions. So you're never out of cards if something goes wrong. And the third principle is serve my cause. Now, my cause has a lot to do with animals and a lot to do with mental health. So I've combined them together as one to become the compassionate warrior to serve all the elements and not just single out one cause or another, because I know that'll have detrimental impacts on each other.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What was your book called, brother? What's your book called?
My book, my book I'm writing is called Absolute Hell, Absolute Hope. So the journey of going full circle.
Mm. Awesome. Awesome, man. Mm. And with your vision moving forward, where would you like? You've mentioned some of it, but where would you like to take it moving forward?
Where do I like to take this forward? Is I like to take it forward on stage. I want to be helping as many men as possible to come forward to become the compassionate warriors that they need to be in their own lives. And it's
Mm.
the same with activists as well. You know, take them to the next level within their movements.
Mm.
Take the winkers off and embrace the whole element, not just the one.
Mm. Awesome.
Now,
Awesome.
we've got lives to save, not just animals. A man's life's just as important as an animal's. If we
Right.
encourage a man to put down that needle or put down that, you know, that rifle and come forward to to seek help, I should
Mm.
say, that's a victory right there. As well as emptying a knock-on box of a slaughterhouse full of animals.
Mm.
A lot of similarities.
Yeah. So with that, what was your journey? I'm really interested. Like, what was the click that made you go from the slaughterhouse worker to the vegan activist?
My crisis sent me basically my whole fucking crisis. It snapped me. They call it awakening. It awoken me. It awoken my thoughts. It awoken my actions. It awoken my whole heart. It's like fuck. I've been living a life of lies, just being brainwashed and full on ego. And I've paid the price of doing something that I shouldn't have done because of the actions and the modeling that I've received over my years, which has suppressed a lot of my energy,
Mm.
anger bottled up, and then that energy being suppressed down here has shown up somewhere else. And unfortunately, there's been a victim who's paid the price as a result of my suppressed energy. And then that's reflected back onto me, where I've been prosecuted through the court of laws and had my reputation and everything else smeared. And I've paid the price of being publicly shamed through that. So in that essence, that has gone, fuck, that's awakened me. That's totally, I'm on high alert
Mm.
to move forward.
Mm. Awesome. Awesome.
To
So,
take all these lessons on and go, right, well, what can I do with this? I'm
mm.
not going to sit here and be the victim. I've
Mm.
got to own this. I've got to own my actions. I've got to step it up, and I've got to go, right, well, my passion's helping and developing other people, men. How can I fuse all this animal rights, this mental health, all together as one? And that's where I've had to sit down. I've had to seek treatment that I've had to get, and as well as the MKP work, in
Mm.
order to nut myself out, in order to live the principles that I've put forward.
Mm. Oh. Oh. Mm. It's awesome, brother. It's awesome. Mm. Yeah. So, what would you say masculinity is to you now after all the work that you've done, after doing the training and moving forward with it?
Masculinity, masculinity to me is being the example, being that compassionate example to the
Mm.
boys coming up.
Mm.
There's young men out there that need older men to go teach them in the right way on how to be men, and
Mm.
not the wrong way, the right way, so they can be led to develop and become the man that they want to be. So
Mm.
living the life of Mr. Example is really, really where the masculinity comes into me.
Mm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, what would you say to anyone that might be watching this and be thinking of doing the training, but they're not sure, they might not know if it's worth it? What would you say to any of them?
Come to your local I group,
Mm.
associate with men who have been through the weekend. Just step forwards, step forwards out of your comfort zone and shake the hand of men around you, because you're safe. You really are. You're safe in a circle with brothers.
Mm.
Proximity is power.
Oh. Oh. Awesome. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, thanks for that, brother. It was a awesome, awesome chat. It was good to get your feedback on stuff like that, and
Thank
also
you.
the, everything you were talking about with the animal rights movement and the going from a slaughterhouse to that. This your journey is a very beautiful one, and the gold that I see in you is just that really loving energy, and no matter love, and you just want to give that to the world. So that's the goal that I see in you. So that's what I wanted to speak on, brother. And that's why I asked you to do this live with me. So thank you for
That's
coming
fine.
on tonight.
That's cool.
Alrighty. Brave
Hashtag
Wolf.
compassionate warrior.
Brave Wolf. This is episode 2 of Welcome to the Brotherhood with Craig Whitney. Thank you everyone for dropping in. Alrighty, that's it. Thank you. See
Thank
brother.
you. Right, bye.